Awesome. Okay, so it's 1 o'clock. We're ready to get started, and I first want to welcome everybody. Thank you all for joining us today for this webinar, where you will learn about how you can simplify the tardy process in your school using our tardy management plugin. So I'm Tina. I'm going to be your tour guide today, and this is Brian. Brian is going to make sure that everything runs smoothly. He's going to handle the Q&A at the end of the presentation, and he's going to make sure I don't leave anything important out of this tour. Thank you, Brian. Okay, Brian, I'm going to toss this to you. I think you have some things to share with everyone.
I just want to remind everyone that I'm going to be sending a copy of this presentation after we're finished here. I'll be emailing it to you. And if you have any questions during the presentation, feel free to enter them in the question and answer section or the chat section, and we'll address them. There's a specific question and answer section, and for any of those that we do not get to, we'll respond to you directly.
Absolutely. Thanks, Brian. Okay, so to kick things off today, I would like to make mention that identiMetrics has been a proud PowerSchool partner for over 15 years. I mean, along with PowerSchool, we share their vision to continually provide an efficient learning experience for all students and offer tools to support teachers and administrators in this effort. So today, I'm super excited to introduce you to one of those tools, our tardy management plugin. So right now, your tardy process might take several people and a whole bunch of manual effort. Our plugin will help you streamline your entire tardy process, create an automated attendance workflow for your front office, and free up lots of time. It also provides an easy-to-access data tool to support your attendance initiatives. So let's get started. I'm going to share my screen. Bring you over here to my PowerSchool server. So to start, I want to explain that our tardy plugin is configured at the school level, which means you configure our plugin for each school independently. It's really quite useful since attendance recording methods can be set up differently at schools within a district, right? High school and middle school, many times they're using a meeting attendance method. Elementary schools, many times are defaulting to a daily recording method. So today, during our tour, we're going to review 2 schools, 1 high school and 1 elementary school. And I'm going to show you both methods of attendance recording within our plugin. So I'm going to start the tour today in Apple Grove High School. A couple of things I want to mention to you. You'll notice that I happen to be using the new user interface on this particular test server. It's fantastic, by the way, but our plugin is going to work with the standard user interface or with the new user interface, regardless of whether you've ported over to this new navigation system. So just wanted to point that out. Okay, so here we are, tour starting, Apple Grove High School. This school, for our plugin, is configured to record meeting attendance. What does that mean? It means that when a student scans using our plugin page, the attendance will be recorded to the period on the student's bell schedule at the time they enter the building, okay? So today, first, I'm going to show you how it all works. Then we're going to go behind the scenes where we can review the configuration. Okay. Our plugin creates a page that is used for attendance recording. It's called the scan page, and it's really easy to navigate to from the start page with a few simple clicks. So here we are in PowerSchool. I'm going to navigate to my scan page with a couple of simple clicks. And here we are. We're on our scan page. This scan page will be the active page that your front office staff or your attendance team will use to record attendance. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about how this page is set up. There is an upper section, and it's and a lower section. And the distinction between these two sections is this blue-gray line that separates the two. The upper section has some important information, date and time stamp, an attendance code that has been pre-configured and set to display on the scan page. That being said, you do have the option to change that on the fly if the configuration option needs to be different for any particular student that is coming in through your front office. The hall pass option is set to yes for this code. An attendance comment can be applied to any student who you would like to record a comment for in their record. And then down here, if you notice, there is a little cursor flashing in a green box that's waiting for ID input. Okay, this is important. There are a couple of different ways that you can enter ID information. The plugin is looking for a student ID. You can enter it using a pin pad, okay? Think maybe cafeteria style. You might have a pin pad attached to your point of sale. You could enter an ID number. You could use your barcode scanner if the students have ID cards. Or you could use a biometric solution. Brian and I, big fans of that option, okay? This solution will allow you to use the finger scan option so that when a student enters into the front office, instead of, looking for a card or worrying about typing an ID number, this is what they're going to use because they don't forget these when they come to school every day. So when I show you how this works, I'm going to show you a couple of different ways that we can enter ID input. Okay, so again, you have a couple of different options to enter student ID information into the plugin: biometric finger scan, barcode to an ID card, or manual entry. Think a pin pad, or even into the keyboard option on the computer itself. The lower half of the screen is going to provide information, attendance information for our students. And you'll see you have some important information, and you can see the column headers. We have a student's name, the student number, the grade level, the attendance code that was assigned to that student, the description of the code, the period that's associated with the time that the student came into the building and the course, and the final column will give us a total meeting tardy. Real easy to put your eyes on the lower half of the screen and get some great information at a glance. Okay, so let's take you through what this looks like. So here we are, we've navigated over to our scan page, the day has started, and we're going to be seeing students enter into the front office to record their tardy. Okay, I'm gonna first show you the first time around. I'm gonna use my finger scanner. Okay, I'm not sure if you can see. There we go, a little bit. So the finger scanner is a nice, small little piece of hardware that is attached to the computer. Okay, that you're running, a Windows-based computer that you're running. And I'm going to take you through what it looks like when your students enter into the front office to record their attendance using my finger scanner the first time around. Okay, so a couple things are going to happen on the screen. Display will get updated, a hall pass will be generated. Behind the scenes, there's stuff happening too, okay? Attendance is recorded, alerts are triggered if they're set up in the parent portal, the attendance alerts, and a timestamp is added to the attendance record. So when I put my finger on the scanner, watch closely, it happens pretty quickly, and we'll go through each and every item that is recorded. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to see here, once my student comes into the building late, is this hall pass is going to be generated. Okay, let's look at this hall pass a little closer. Let me make it a little smaller there, and I'll move my finger scan box out of the way. Here's our hall pass. The hall pass is configurable, and my hall pass happens to have all of the options presenting. Yours might look a little different, but you can configure that as it works best for your school. At the top of the hall pass, we see a date and a time stamp. My student's name, the class that is on their bell schedule at the time that they come into the building will appear. The attendance code and the presence status is pulling from the way your attendance codes are set up within PowerSchool, and it's pulling the attendance code that I have configured the plugin to use. I also have a total tardy count that is going to appear, and a message that you can configure based on how you want your attendance culture to be created within your school. Okay, so you can have a message up to 400 characters, and you're going to type in what makes sense for your school that will align with each of the tardy thresholds that's reached. And I'll show you how that looks when we go behind the scenes. Okay, so I'm going to be done here. This is going to go back to the page, and we are all ready for our next student. So I'm going to show you what it looks like. I'm going to put in a different number. This time I'm not going to use my finger scan option. I'm going to manually enter a number in, and let's see how this looks. Same concept, same idea. Hall pass with the appropriate information, timestamp, class on the bell schedule, tardy count, and then the message that I've configured for tardy count number 4. All right. Perfect. Now we're ready for the next student. Pretty fast, right? Couple of seconds there. You're going to have that ID entered, either finger scan or other manual way. Hall pass is generated. Students are in, grab their pass, and off they go to class. Okay. Behind the scenes, there's some other things that happened when that ID number was entered. Attendance was recorded. If there were attendance alerts set up in the portal in PowerSchool, those attendance alerts would be triggered. Students, parents, or both. And a timestamp is added to the student record. So let's take a look at each of these students, and we can see how their attendance was recorded. So let's go back in here. Let's take a look at each of their records and how that presents. I'm going to click on my student, Josh. And there we have it. The attendance that was chosen on the scan page, which was tardy excused, got inserted and written to the class on the bell schedule that aligned with the time that he scanned into the building, so TE. If I open up my comment, you'll notice that a timestamp was appended to the student's comment. Okay, so that's what's happening behind the scenes. So stuff in front that we can see, pass off to the student, get them off to class, and now your attendance is automatically recorded with a timestamp appended. Important to note that if there were any teacher comments, if there was anything already in this comment box, you would we would append that entry on the scan time. So we're not going to overwrite anything that you already have in there. It'll just accumulate. Okay. So let's go back here. And we'll go back to the start page. I always like to take you through it again to kind of show you what it looks like when we get from the start page over to the scan page. Again, just a couple of clicks. And we're back at the scan page now that we've seen exactly how that attendance was recorded. And that will be for every student. Something else I want to show you on this page, it's called the printing page. Let's go take a look at this printing page. The scan page is a daily view, okay? The one where you are actually entering the ID information. It's a daily view. Each day when your staff navigates to that scan page, it should be empty, and it will start to populate with entries as the day goes on, okay? Each day empty, again, populate as the day goes on. This page, the printing page, actually is a cumulative view of the data you've collected over time. It's really a fantastic tool for you to use to create and tailor meaningful attendance strategies. And here's why. Okay, the basic filter on this page is going to allow you to use all of the search options that you can in PowerSchool. But if I click on the drop down here and open up some of the advanced filter options, you can see that you have a myriad of choices with which to filter your data and provide them to the attendance teams that are creating strategies and managing the student attendance. You can, for example, if I want to see, let's say I want to see something specific to a student, and I want to, and I'm going to show you what this looks like. if I want to see the attendance activity for my student Cody Anderson, and I do a search on his name, you'll notice that I can see cumulative history. Notice this attendance scan date. I can see cumulative history for Cody, the times he came into the building, the attendance codes that were assigned, and his overall total tardy count, which is 24 to date. And I have a couple of pages of information about Cody that will bring me back in time, okay? So if you're wanting to look on a particular student, you could do that. So let's take Cody out of here. You can also do, for example, some compound searches. Again, these are really, really important as well in terms of, data and information that you easily want to access to get ahead of these kids, put them back on track, right? That's kind of what we need to do here, and especially when we're talking about managing our tardies, so they don't spin up and turn into something a little bit more, concerning, such as missing school, truancy, etc. So let's take a look at how a compound search would look. Let's say I want to know everybody in 9th grade that has an attendance code of TU. Let's apply that. There's a nice search. Okay, so now I can go in here and I can search on all my 9th graders that have a tardy unexcused code and get a handle on that. Okay, so this page, extremely useful. I'll make a mention here that all of the data, that attendance data that we're writing, is going directly into the PowerSchool tables. So you can use all of the existing reports that you currently pull. This page right here just puts it at your fingertips and just gives you an easy way to switch and sort that data that you've collected over time. Maybe highlight a particular set of data that you're looking for. Okay, let's go back here. I'm going to go back to the start page. That was Apple Grove High School, where I have configured my plugin for meeting attendance. So let's go behind the scenes now and take a look at what the configuration looks like. So I have a nice little link here to a settings page on the meeting side. Let's take a look at how our configuration page is set up. By the way, this is one of 2 places that you have to go to configure the plugin. It's very straightforward. It's very streamlined. Let me move my little finger scan box out of the way so we can really see. Okay, so this configuration page is set up into 3 areas. You'll notice there's main settings, print slip settings, and the preset tardy comments. So up here in the main settings area, as I mentioned, every school in the district can be configured independently. Okay, so you're going to choose a lane for your school. You're going to decide whether or not you want that attendance scan to be written to the period that the student has on their bell schedule when they enter the building. Okay, that would be a meeting attendance. Daily attendance record is just going to write to their daily record. Okay, so in this case, on my high school, I've chosen the lane of meeting attendance. You will choose one or the other. You'll choose an option. And then you can set a default attendance code. Open up my attendance code bank. This is the attendance bank that's pulled from your existing attendance code bank that you have set up in PowerSchool. So we're just going to pull it in and you're going to choose a default. Again, remember, you can choose a default, but the page gives you the option to change something on the fly if you need to move that or maneuver that for any particular student. Then the rest of the options here have a little bit to do with the way that scan page is going to behave. You can decide whether or not you want to return to the configured default after each ID entry. And that can be set to yes or toggle to no, depending upon how you want to use it. You can create a global setting to print a hall pass. You can decide whether or not you want to use the student number or the student ID as the student identifier. Pretty popular. Student number is the one that most are using. Total tardy count. The total tardy count period can either be set to a full year, or based on the way that your terms are set up in PowerSchool, you can configure the tardy count to reset after a particular term. The clock in and the include scan time and attendance comment. I always like to just turn that to yes. Very, very useful information to see that timestamp appended. But again, if you didn't want it there, you have the option to turn it off. The use of the clock in and clock out. the configuration settings are, this page is going to look the same whether you're using the meeting or the daily attendance option. The clock in and clock out option, which I'm going to go into in a little bit more depth when I go over to my Washington Elementary School, is all about how we are applying a timestamp to the clock in and clock out fields. So this is for daily use only. Notice I don't have it set because I'm set for meeting attendance. Scanning page limit. This is how many entries you want to see on your scan page. I limit it to 15 because I have my nice little printing page that gives me the cumulative information that I'm looking for. So I like to limit it so I have a nice concise view. Some people set this to 0 so that they don't see any activity on that page. And some people open it up to see all of the entries, okay? Again, configurable, you decide how it's going to work best for your front office. Print slip settings. This is going to define how your hall pass looks. So again, I had all of my options turned on. Yours could look the same. It could look a little different. And then it's always nice to have the school logo, which is just a JPEG file with certain dimensions that gets put in the district images folder that pulls out on that hall pass. Always super nice to see that. Okay, and then the bottom and last section is our preset tardy comments. This is where you are able to create a message, an intervention, a strategy, a consequence that aligns with the tardy count that's been reached. Mine are, inserted here based on the message I want to convey to my students. Yours could look differently. Again, 400 characters, you write your message. And we're done. The plugin is completely configured from the main settings page. Okay, one more spot we have to go, and that will complete the plugin configuration. And it's our attendance codes. So let's pop over here into our attendance codes. When the plugin is installed and it's enabled, each of your attendance codes that exists in your attendance bank in PowerSchool will have an additional set of options at the bottom to be configured for use with the plugin. So let's take a look at it. The first one is, so you will select or deselect. It all comes deselected, just so you know. By default, everything is deselected, and you will go and select which ones that you want applied to your code. Okay, I am talking about here my tardy excused code. And this is how I've set my tardy excused code to behave when used with a plugin. I want it to count for the student on their tardy. I want to see this code create a hall pass. I want to use this code on my printing page. I want to see historical information of who is being assigned this code. I want to see the total tardy count on the hall pass for this code. And I also want to see my comment, right? My comment that would be assigned to this code. Notice I don't have anything in the clock in and clock out usage. Why? Because I have defined meeting attendance as my recording option, and that is a daily attendance option only currently. Okay, so that's how a tardy code would be set up. And this is, again, you're going to define all of the codes that you're going to be using with the plugin. I'm going to show you my tardy unexcused code. Looks, very similar. Same idea. I have all of the options checked. And once that is set up and configured from the main settings area and from your attendance code area, you're ready to go. Okay, what, 30 minutes, potentially to get it installed, enabled, configured, and then you're ready to rock and roll. So that is kind of the full overview of how the Apple Grove High School is set up, from the usability on the scan page where the attendance is entered and then the configuration options behind the scenes. Okay, let's move over to Washington Elementary because I want to show you that this is going to be configured a little bit differently because Washington Elementary is a school that wants to manage to recording to the student's daily attendance record. They're not concerned with writing to the meeting that's on the student's bell schedule at the time they come into the building. They want that information over on the daily side. Well, we got you there because we can do that as well. Okay, so back on the start page, looks the same. What you'll notice here is that I'm just in a different school. And let's navigate over to that scan page, which is the page that we need to have open. when our student's ID information needs to be entered. So same idea. I'm just going to choose the daily option here because that's how we're recording. And again, I have a nice little link on the other side here that will bring me to my scan page. Here we are. Looks very, very similar. Okay, well, pretty much identical. We have an upper part of the page and a lower part of the page divided by this nice blue-gray line. And again, student information will present on the bottom. The upper half has a date and a timestamp. A tardy code that I've chosen for this configuration and as my default. My hall pass option is set, and then take a look. I have my cursor flashing in the scan finger to continue box. So let's go through this series and this sequence. Again, it's going to look identical. It's going to write a little bit differently. So my tardy excuse code is chosen. I'm going to scan my finger, and here comes my hall pass. This time around, I decided to use the finger scan. On my next one, I will use just manual entry so you can see that it will react the same. So, okay, let's take a look. I have a student name. I'm sorry, a date. On the top of my hall pass, I have the date and the timestamp that Anthony came into the building. I have the student's name, the class on his bell schedule. We see the class here. It's not writing to that class, but we do see it on this particular hall pass. Tardy excused, and my presence status, which is excused, again, just pulling from the way that my attendance code is set up in PowerSchool. Anthony has 5 tardies, and here's the message on Anthony's for tardy number 5, and it's Anthony's message today. Make today exceptional, tardy number 5, and this is what he will see when he gets his hall pass and moves off to class. Okay, so I'm going to show you real quick. I'm going to change my code here. I'm going to change it to a tardy code so you can see that you can change this when you are when you're actually on the page, even though my code is configured behind the scenes for a tardy excuse. I'm going to change this to a tardy code, and I'm going to scan as another student here. And I'm going to manually type that number in for you today so that you can see it's going to behave identically. You're not going to notice any difference. Here's my friend JC, math, tardy excuse. Notice my code has changed. And total tardy count. And again, here's the consequence. Okay. Perfect. Now, I want to show you a couple of different ways. I use 2 different codes that were set up to record 2 different ways. So the first thing I want to do is I want to go back and I want to show you Anthony's daily record. So let me go back in here and show you exactly how that recorded. Anthony had a tardy excused code. And let's go into his record, into the daily record here. Okay, here we are. Okay, so I was mentioning before that the clock in and clock out usage is assigned to those that have chosen the daily attendance recording method with the plugin. Okay. And using the daily attendance recording method, you have the option to append the clock in and clock out fields with time entries based on when that student comes into the building. Okay, so let's take a look closer and see what happened here. So here we are on Thursday. Anthony's record shows the tardy excuse, and that's the code that was assigned to Anthony's record. But I also notice here, there's a timestamp that was automatically inserted, okay, automatically inserted into the clock in and clock out fields. Let me explain the logic. With a tardy code, the clock in field is appended with the time the student enters late into the building, in this case, 1:25. The clock out field is automatically appended with the end, with the time for the end of the bell schedule for this day. Okay, so I'll slow that down, just repeat it one more time. The logic behind the tardy insertion of the clock in and clock out scan time. Tardy, the clock in time, will be the time the student comes into the building, automatically inserted. The clock out time will be the end of the day for this particular bell schedule. Okay, and that's the logic behind that. Let's go back because I want to show you, and that was how I have chosen to record the attendance for that particular student. We'll learn a little bit more when we go behind the scenes how that is actually set up. The other student was JC. Let's take a look at JC. The code I used for her was just a tardy code. And that recorded without the clock in and clock out fields being appended. But if we take a look, we did append a timestamp into the comment. All right. That is always, if you want the timestamp in the comment, that will always appear there if you configure as such. And if you determine that you would like to use the clock in and clock out values to be appended with a timestamp, then we would set the attendance code appropriately. So you have two ways you can go there with the daily attendance recording, with the clock in and clock out values appended, or with the scan time appending just the comment, okay? And as always, the attendance code will be inserted and written to that student's daily record. Okay, so let's go behind the scenes so I can show you a little bit about how this was set up. So my nav bar, I'm going to go into my settings link, and surprise, it looks just the same as the other meeting attendance configuration page. It's just I have a couple of different things that have been selected. So again, the main settings area for my elementary school, I chose daily attendance to be my recording method. I chose a default attendance code, and I've set all of my options down here to record appropriately. Notice my clock in and clock out option is turned on. I'm a school, I want to see that value appended. Okay, print slip settings, same idea. This school decided they didn't want a school logo, added to the hall pass, again, optional. And then down here, again, our preset tardy comments. You're going to write your message that aligns with the tardy threshold. So again, same idea, 400 characters, you determine what message you'd like to send. So let's go into the attendance codes, because this, again, let's go into the tardy excused code first. The tardy excused code also has the same series of options to be used with the plugin as we saw in the meeting. Okay, remember, every attendance code is going to have this series of options appended, and you can define your attendance code behavior based on which ones you select. So everything is assigned here exactly as I showed you my other tardy code on the meeting side, with the exception of the clock in and clock out usage. I've determined that with my tardy code, clock in field gets appended with the scan time, clock out field will be appended with the end of the day for the bell schedule. I'm going to throw something else in here for you. I want to show you a nice option to use this for early dismissal as well. Okay. For early dismissal, if you'd like to use our plugin, it's perfectly fine. You can do so. And you would set up your attendance code and define the options that work best for an early dismissal. So take a look at how I set up my early dismissal. It's not a tardy, right? So I don't have this box selected. Wouldn't make sense. I don't want to see a tardy count, listed or applied to a student if they have an early dismissal. And I'm also not going to put a tardy count or a preset comment on the hall pass. Notice these are deselected. But what I want to do is I wanted to print a hall pass so that that student, when they exit the building, they have a, something to show that they're okay to leave. And I also want to see this code on the printing page. That's important information to me. I want to be able to have historical data at my fingertips that I can pull and maybe see how many students have left early on a particular day, or maybe a particular grade. And then notice here, I've changed my logic to be assigned for my early dismissal kids. Here's how this one works, right? Again, remember tardy, time in is the scan time, and that gets appended to clock in. Time out is the end of the day for the bell schedule. And early dismissal is the reverse. My clock in field on an early dismissal is going to assign the start of the day for the bell schedule. And my clock out field is going to have the time that they actually left the building. You have exact minutes that that student has attended school that day using the clock in and clock out feature if you so desire. Let's go back because, and I hope there's lots of questions coming over because I love to answer all of your questions. Okay, let's go back to the scan page. Again, remember, start of the day, you're going to get ready for your students to be coming in. And this is the page that would need to be open. And it also has the link to the printing page. Remember, our cumulative view, right? This is our cumulative view of data, has all the same options that are available to you as we saw on the meeting side of things, right? For Apple Grove High School. You can switch, you can sort, you can do compound searches, single searches, whatever works best for the data that you're trying to collect. I think that is all of the things. Brian, this is your part. What did I forget?
I think that was pretty thorough, but we do have some questions that we can get to.
Okay, let's do that because I talk a long time. I should have said also, hold your hand up and tell me to stop talking, but okay, let's hear the questions.
Our school tracks minutes of instructional time, so that would be the daily code, correct?
Correct. You would need to use the plugin and choosing the daily attendance recording method. Correct.
Okay. I got another question here that you mentioned a few methods of entry for student ID. What are they again?
Okay, so finger scan. Okay, here's a finger scan option. Again, kids don't forget these when they come to school every day. We're talking about streamlining that process through the front office so kids get in and off to class, which is where we want them. So a finger scan option is one option. It's a great way to add additional operational efficiencies to the use of our plugin, okay? You can also use, if your students have ID cards, you can use a barcode scanner. Let me get over to the page, if you would here. Because it's easier just to talk to it when I'm actually there, but this field right here where the cursor is flashing, it's looking for student ID entry. Okay, student ID, student number, either one, they're your two choices. So if the ID card that your students carry has the barcode with the embedded student number or student ID, you could use a barcode scanner. That ID entry will go right into that active field there where the cursor is flashing. You could use a pin pad. Okay, sometimes if you think in a cafeteria, some cafeterias, if they're not using our finger scan system, they might be using a pin pad, okay? So the pin pad can be used and a student can type their ID number in. Something like this. The front office has the computer facing them, but maybe the pin pad is facing out, so the student types their number in, grabs their pass, which is facing them as well, and off they go. You could also use manual entry. For schools where maybe you want to use a pin pad, you're not using finger scanning, and you don't have an ID card for a barcode scanner, you can type it manually into the keyboard that's attached to your computer where PowerSchool is running.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Next question. Will the plugin work on our Apple products?
Sure, absolutely. PowerSchool is browser-based, and our plugin becomes part of PowerSchool when it's installed and enabled. Now, that being said, the finger scan option does require a Windows operating system. So if you want to take advantage of our finger scan system, you will need to run that on a Windows operating system.
Are the tardy actions configurable?
Yes. The comments, correct? Is that what we're talking about? Yeah, absolutely. The tardy comments are all configurable, and they're not set in stone either. You might want to start one way and change them as the year goes on, entirely up to you. But yes, configurable, 400 characters to write your message.
Next question was, are there other ways to use this solution, like for field trips?
Yes, there is.
Sure.
Remember, what we are doing is creating an attendance record based on the attendance code that's chosen. There are a number of schools that like to use this field trip to append a student's record and then search on it and have that information as well, correct? You can use this with any code you choose.
All right, the next question was, I'm interested in appending the student's meeting record as well. Is that possible?
You have to choose a lane. So you are going to either record, you're going to say, I'm going to record to the daily record, or I'm going to record to the meeting record. But remember, we are writing directly to the PowerSchool attendance tables. So your bridges will remain intact, however they're set, and they will interact with attendance in the same way they do now if you're manually entering data, okay? So you'll choose a lane with a plugin, but your bridges can always play a part in moving that data from a meeting to a daily and back again if they're set accordingly.
I think that two-way bridge is super helpful. It just changes how you might be doing things currently. So it's
correct. It definitely. Yeah, and Brian, it's a great point, because something that I always like to talk about, when you add a new tool to your toolbox, sometimes you need to step back a minute, take a look at your existing processes, and decide how you're going to modify them potentially to take advantage of this new tool that is now part of, of your system and your toolbox. So yeah, it's always important. One of the things that I always like to do when, when we talk about this, when it gets installed, when it gets configured, sometimes it's great to talk about different ways to use this. And I always like to help guide, if I can, structure a way that this plugin will really help create some operational efficiencies for your attendance staff.
It's a great point. So we got time for one final question here, and that's, I'm ready to move forward, but I need to show a few others how this works. And can we test it?
Yes, 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 and yes. So yes, set up a demo. You can, and you can reach out to Brian. Brian can get an individual demonstration set up. Either he will do it or I will do it. So absolutely, on our website, we have a link to schedule your own demo if you want to go ahead and take a look at some of the options there and get your team together to figure out what works best. So yes, if you want a demonstration to show to other people, website, Brian, me, yes. The answer is yes. We will get you scheduled for a demo. And yes, a free trial. And I'm a big fan of it. I'm a big fan of saying, try this thing out, see how it works for your, for your school before you make a commitment to make that, to move in that direction. Works a little like this. You would say, hey, Tina, hey, Brian, I want a free trial. Sign you up for a free trial. We schedule a meeting, pass the plugin over to you, configure that plugin with you, right? Install, enable, configure the plugin, and be here to guide you through the initial use of the product. Okay, answer your questions. We're very accessible, because the bottom line is we have a commitment to your success. And so we are here to help support and guide. Attendance is important. That's why we're here. And that's what we're here to do. So yes, demo, yes, free trial, happy to do it. You just need to let us know when and where, and we'll be there. We'll show up.
Absolutely. We will. That's all the time we have for today.
Awesome.
So, thank you.
Thanks, everybody. I hope to hear from you soon. Bye.
Bye-bye.